everyone! Welcome back to my channel. It's a new year and I made a new version of one of my most popular patterns, the hexagon cardigan. And I'll share some of those details with you in this video. Since its debut on my channel in 2020, many of you have tried the pattern and sent me comments and questions and even photos of your finished projects on Instagram. There are many ways you could customize this pattern. Here are some of the finished projects you guys sent me. Here's a kid's size made by Starlight and Stitches. Here's a modified version of the cardigan by Occasionally Alexis Crafts. Here's one with an added border around the edge by Annie. Here's another one by Starlight and Stitches that is elongated on just the bottom part. To do this, you would first sew the two hexagons together and then continue with the granny stitch in rows just on the bottom edge. Seeing different versions of the cardigan and also reading through some of your comments on the tutorial, I was inspired to do a pattern update, which now includes added wrist cuffs on the sleeves and more details on sizing. The link to the original tutorial and updated written pattern are both listed in the description box below. Stay tuned for the wrist cuff tutorial at the end of this video. Now let's get into some of the sizing details. The original cardigan was made with 15 rounds and a 6mm crochet hook, but this time I wanted to go bigger, so in the new version I went up to 17 rounds and used an 8mm crochet hook. These are the two main ways to adjust for sizing, with hook size and number of rounds. I didn't list a gauge on the pattern because this will vary depending on hook, yarn size, and how tightly you're crocheting. If you're not sure how many rounds to do with your chosen yarn and hook, just get started on the pattern and measure as you go. Fold the hexagon in half, corner to corner, and measure the length of the edge from neck down your arm to get an idea of how it will fit. The thing about sizing this pattern though is that it grows in all directions at the same time. It gets wider, longer, and the sleeves open way up. So by round 17, the sleeves are gaping. This is where the wrist cuffs are going to be great, and they're going to bring the sleeves in and also make the length of the sleeves a little bit less awkward. You can also add cuffs onto smaller sizes. The stitch count will be different depending on what size you do, but the principle is the same for any size. So let's get into that tutorial now. Okay, so here's one of the sleeves of my cardigan, and we can see here how wide it is, and we're just gonna scale it in a little bit so it's a little tighter around our wrists. You could also work in rounds along this edge in the same granny stitch to keep the sleeve wide and just make it longer. I personally think it looks better to bring it in a little bit. It kind of just pulls the whole pattern together. So I'm going to zoom in now and show you how to do that. So with a new piece of yarn, make a slip knot, insert your hook, and we're going to start in between any of these clusters in that last round we did of the cardigan. And do make sure the front of your work is still on the front, and we have the back side of the work on the inside of the work. And now with that loop around your hook, go into one of the spaces between clusters and pull the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through those two loops. That will count as our first stitch. But we're actually going to be doing half double crochet stitch in these rounds, and I'll show you real quick what that is just in case you don't know, but it's just a yarn over, insert through the space, same space we just went through, pull the yarn back through, now yarn over again and pull through the 3 loops on your hook. Okay, so that's the half double crochet stitch, and we're going to do 2 in each of these spaces between clusters. So you can just go ahead and jump right into the next half double crochet into the next space and do another one, then move to the next space, Okay, this is what it looks like. They're just little smaller clusters of 2 between the bigger clusters of 3. And we're just going to go all the way around the sleeve circumference. And when you get to the part where the seam is, if you haven't gotten there already, we're going to count this seam as a cluster right here. So do your 2 half double crochets into this space. We're going to count that as a cluster, and then do 2 half double crochets into that next space. And just keep going around. Once you get to the end of the round, we're going to do a slip stitch into that very first stitch. And that ends round 1, and then we'll chain 1. And here we can start to see how this is going to bring in our sleeve. It's kind of hard to see with just one row. It will get a little bit tighter with a couple more rows. We're just going to continue with 1 half double crochet in each stitch for the next couple rows. So start right in that first stitch where your chain is coming out of. 1, 2, 3, and so on, doing 1 in each stitch. I'm actually crocheting a little bit tighter than I was before, so I'm changing the gauge a little bit, which can vary a lot depending on your hook size and yarn. But I like to do this part a little bit tighter just to have, some contrast against these big spaces, and then have a tight little cuff, I think is a really nice contrast. And so just go all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the end of this round. And at the end of this round, we're going to end again with a slip stitch into the first stitch. And that's the end of round 2. Here, that looks a little bit tighter than it did after round 1. And we're just going to continue. I did 5 more rows of just 1 half double crochet in each stitch to complete the wrist cuff. But if you wanted to make it even tighter, you could just do a couple of decreases mixed in wherever, really, for this part. And I'll show you how to do a decrease, the way I like to do a decrease. Because depending on how many rows you did in the original cardigan, this part could still be possibly a little too wide. And maybe you want to bring it in a little bit more so it's really tight around your wrists. In that case, you would just add in some more decreases. And the way I do a decrease in half double crochet, well, there's 2 ways. You could skip over a stitch and just move to the next one, but that leaves a little bit of a gap. So the other way you could do a decrease is to insert through the stitch, pull the yarn through, now hold, insert through the next stitch, pull the yarn through, and then yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on your hook. And that's how you do a decrease in half double crochet. And if you do a couple of decreases, I would space them out. You don't want to like clump them all into one spot, otherwise it's gonna like buckle the pattern a little bit in that one spot. So if you want to add some more decreases, just kind of space them out a little bit. So maybe I'll do a couple more stitches, and then maybe I'll do another decrease here, which I'll show you one more time. As you yarn over, insert through the stitch, pull the yarn through, hold here, insert through the next stitch, pull the yarn through. Now you have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. That's the decrease, and you can keep going around. I did a total of 7 rows around the cuff, but you could also do more or less than that depending on your style or your aesthetic, because there's a lot of ways you can customize this cardigan, and this is just one way how to do the cuff. So when you get to the end of this round, you just end with another slip stitch, same with every other round, and you can make your cuff as long as you want. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. You can check out the details in the written pattern. I've left it in the description box below. And if you guys want to send me pictures of your finished cardigans, I'd love to see them. You can send them to me on Instagram at _LJ_. Don't forget to hit subscribe and stay tuned for my newest projects. Happy crocheting, everybody. Thanks for watching the tutorial.